I think that the current regime, since its beginning, has never accepted to be challenged by whoever. And that's why it has been putting much effort into destroying political parties just because he doesn't believe in democracy and doesn't like to have some alternatives in face. So I think it is unfortunate for this country of ours that the regime, which failed at least to meet the needs of its population, just cling on going on leading or misleading the country, if I can just use this word, because this country is sinking and this country needs to be restored. And who will restore it if there is no alternative? And for those who are in control, the issue is not restoring this country. The issue is just how do they get more and more rich. Unfortunately, they would better think about the future, not for themselves, but at least for their kins, their sons and daughters and granddaughters and grandsons. That's what is very, very important. That's why we'd better advise them to just try to make an autocriticism of what they've been doing since they are in control. And if they find it was positive, then they can go on. But I think they won't find anything positive. That's why I advise them to just get aside and let others come in and help this country try to move from where it is and move forward. I may perhaps go a little bit in the background and say that since 2 decades, this CNDD-FDD has only been looking in one direction. It has never been accepting the democracy to take place because it has been only looking at possibility to stay into power regardless the achievements of itself. You remember, in 2005 they came into power, and there was a multi-party system where people could debate, where parliament was really a place where they could exchange on national issues. But since 2007, 2008, I think, they divided the Frodebo, which was the leader of the opposition that period. Then in 2010, you remember what they did with FNL. In 2014, they thwarted the UPRONA, and they were astonished by what was the achievement of the opposition, not as political parties, but just as coalition of independent, Amizero Burundi. And from that time onward, they have invested much more in fighting against Agathon Rwasa than in promoting the national development. You remember what came out, the referendum on the Constitution in 2018, a referendum where all the bases of democracy have been shaken deliberately by the will of the CNDD-FDD. You remember, for instance, in these constitutions of ours today, independent candidates don't have the chance to contribute in the institutions. Why? And this is against the Constitution itself. How come that in a competition you want or you submit the candidates to different conditions? For instance, an independent, if he is in the legislative competition, he must score 40% of the votes in the constituency, for instance. While for political parties, it is just required 2% nationwide. Now one can just imagine an individual, you want him more than you want from people allied together. And in that same constitution, they put more harsh conditions where they say that there is no room for independent candidates to make coalitions. In other terms, we are not under the regime of a constitution. We are just under a regime of something they pretend to be a constitution, but is not. Because a constitution must be something which is general, more general than even single laws. But go and see how this constitution have been perverted by the regime. Beyond this, the CNL challenged much CNDD-FDD in the previous election of 2020. And some diplomats today acknowledge that CNL had scored more than 60%, although they could back the CNDD-FDD in its pretense that it won the elections. Now, for CNDD-FDD, it wasn't their intention to let alternative come up, but for them, they have to suppress it as long as they are into power. That's why they manipulated some of the leaders of CNL and could even grant them the support of the army, the police, intelligence, and the judiciary to pretend that there was a national conference of the party in March 2024. And unfortunately, we are in a country where the judiciary has no independence because we went to the court to claim our rights, and the administrative chamber of the Supreme Court, which deals with this kind of case, would just have 60 days to pronounce its judgment, but now it is more than a year. that this case is still pending. And there is no intention to pronounce any judgment, just to pave the way forward for the CNDD-FDD and make sure that it monopolizes the parliament and whatever else is in place as institution in this country. It's a pity that things are run this way. First of all, I don't think that we have an electoral campaign today, because we could speak about political or electoral campaign if there would be any kind of competition. But the architecture of this so-called coming election shows enough that we have just CNDD-FDD as just in a show, because the electoral board, from its top to the ground, is 100% for CNDD-FDD and is made of people from CNDD-FDD. You understand that the management of this process is already something fishy. Secondly, those so-called competitors are only those who are acknowledged by the CNDD-FDD, meaning that they are only those who have acquaintances with the CNDD-FDD. So we can, just because the vocabulary is lacking, say that there is an election, a democratic election, but it isn't, since there is no inclusivity in it. And with regard to the violence, anybody can assume that this is a sad reality, because CNDD-FDD Youth League is just used to terrorize those who are not in good relations with them. Mostly those who are not paying allegiance to CNDD-FDD or any of these political parties of its circle. And you know, there are many cases reported here and there where people have been harassed and were obliged to surrender their electoral cards, or voters' card, I mean. So this is one kind of violence, but also there are some others who have been beaten by the Imbonerakure. Cases have been reported in some provinces like Ruyigi and elsewhere. So this violence cannot be avoided, because they have been behaving that way, and they have always the complicity of the army, the police, the administration, and the judiciary. That's why things are the way they are. Yeah. Many cases are reported here and there. People have been beaten, and there is no, I can just give you an example. Go and tour Bujumbura and ask people what is happening. If people are obliged to close their shop or any kind of business they are occupied with in their daily life to attend the meeting of CNDD-FDD. Isn't that this, is not this a violence? Not only here in Bujumbura, some political parties who are pretending to be in race with CNDD-FDD are just reporting some nightmares of their followers here and there. You can just recall on what is said by local radios, then you will know that really this Imbonerakure is just an instrument of threat against the citizens, just to guarantee that CNDD-FDD lasts longer into power. No, I think the political space has been narrowed for every Burundian. I am targeted, of course, but I think many Burundians are all in this situation. The medias, the political parties themselves, and other organizations. But we have to measure our strengths to the challenges we have to face. And we have to transform this into opportunities. That's why I call upon a national conference, because the situation of Burundi is really alarming. The economy is shrinking. The situation of the human rights cannot satisfy anybody. Today we are even involved in what is happening in Congo, with all the heavy consequences that can befall on us. So I think that it is very advisable for Burundians, those into power and whoever else can contribute, to meet and discuss and define the perspectives of this country. Because if we fail to do this, this country can literally become likely other countries where situations has gone very, very wrong, either in Africa or elsewhere in the world. And this cannot be my wish. And if I'm saying this, I just want Burundians to come together and prevent the worst to happen to our country. The international community, doesn't have boundaries. You cannot know from where it starts and where it ends. And it is made by people, I mean. And among those people, some perhaps have contributed a lot in the accession of CNDD-FDD, and first may have an agenda with them. For this category, for instance, it would be very, very hard to take a position contrary to those to whom they have been mentors. And for others, perhaps they may prefer to be silent just because they think that it would be wise for them to not just attract to attract the CNDD-FDD anger against them. But if I would have to just make to deduct from all of this, I would say this position of the international community is what it is. But who is suffering? It's us, Burundians. We cannot expect the solution of our problems to be found by the international community. Although it can help, I think we are the actors of the solution to our problems. Let's become aware of our situation and handle it accordingly and find out the appropriate solution to our crisis. That's what is necessary. I think this accusation may be false. I may even say they may be wrong accusations. Why? I, as Agathon Rwasa, I have done what I have to do in appropriate time, because you cannot force people when they don't will or when they don't wish to go in a direction. You know, if we have to talk about this opposition in Burundi, perhaps we'd better just try to understand what is the genesis of these different organizations. Some may just gone into politics because they were attracted by some kind of opportunities due to the circumstances of that period. Just to give you a few examples. When Burundi recovered with multipartyism in 1992, for instance, it could guarantee the one who was the leader of a political party to get from the government a 4x4 car. At that period, what was very, very trending in this category of cars, it was the Pajero, Mitsubishi Pajero. So, one who went into politics because there was an opportunity to get a Mitsubishi Pajero in the 80s, by the end of in the beginning of the 90s. For him, if he have got that Pajero that time, do you think the situation of that time is the same with the one we are in today? After the Arusha Agreement, in the transitional period, it would be an opportunity for a leader of a political party to be member of cabinet. For that sake, the one who came in and got that opportunity and have got some favors from this regime of CNDD-FDD, do you think that this one is willing to be struggling in terms of building up alternative of CNDD-FDD? I don't think so. Some others may be in politics and may have their acquaintances. They may think that, after all, they are the grandfathers of CNDD-FDD, and for that sake, they must have one foot in CNDD-FDD and the other elsewhere. Do you think that you will easily match with all these kind of politicians? So, if whenever I saw that there was no outcome of these people trying to be together, that it would be just a waste of time, why should I be just wasting my time? I think you cannot be in the opposition and be dictated by the regime, the one in the majority. Or you cannot pretend to be an alternative and yet comply to be dictated by the one you see clearly that he's not moving in the same direction with you. So I cannot regret any of my decisions because they weren't wrong. That's my point. Threats are all day long there. But my commitment is to contribute to change the situation of this country. I want this Burundi to be a havoc of peace. I want to see this Burundi being a nation to all Burundians. I'm committed to make sure this Burundi is viable. And for that sake, I know I have to face threats. I have to face different kind of pressures, but I cannot give up. As long as I can still breath, let me do what I can do. And measures in order to stop me may be there. But as long as I can move forward, I won't just stand still. I will try to make some step, little perhaps, but still I will be keeping moving. That's my commitment, and I hope that one day this Burundi will achieve its dream. This Burundi will be a Burundi of all Burundians and for all Burundians. I want this Burundi to be a Burundi where people enjoy the dignity of being human, being Burundians, or being just human, because Burundi cannot just be where Burundians live. People from elsewhere must have the right to live in Burundi, as Burundi can live elsewhere in this world. For me, the future is not a personal issue. The future is a national issue. That's why I plead for a national conference in order to define perspectives for this country. And this need to be understood by each and everyone. And I'm sure that people who think about a better Burundi are here and there, and they need to consult. And for me, whoever is determined to contribute to a better Burundi without shedding blood, without abusing of the rights of others, he needs to be supported by anybody. That's why I say the future is not a personal business, it is a national business where everybody would be putting in his contribution. I think they are not right. They are not right because whether they would think that it's over, I don't think so. Because the Burundi nation will last longer than what people can think. Burundi is there already for centuries, and it will for more centuries ahead. That's why I would better like people just thinking about how to come out of this dungeon in which Burundi is imprisoned by these rulers of ours today who are only busy with sectarianism. Because this sectarianism cannot help Burundi move forward. And people cannot be thinking in a sectarian way and pretend to bring alternative. There is a need of change, first of all, in the way of thinking how to solve issues of this country. Secondly, people need to analyze deeply this society so as to be able to define better alternatives for this country. That's why I plead for this national conference, which I stated already in front of the Prime Minister when he came to the Parliament some couple of weeks ago. Because for me and for any Burundian who can assess the situation today, it isn't this so-called election badly prepared that we need. We need this conference first because the situation is really alarming. And then, as an outcome, among other perspectives, there is the need of this conference to define what kind of election Burundi requires and to put into place mechanism that can guarantee that we can have an election or elections that could produce institutions which can help Burundi overcome its crisis, the economic crisis, political crisis, social crisis, and whatsoever. We need this, and it is urgent. So I think it is a call I make. It is a plea I am expressing to these categories of Burundians, politicians and non-politicians, to think about materialization of this national conference. As about political parties, I don't see clearly what is the role of political parties when a country is in a deep crisis like this one we are involved in. So what is to be prioritized today is not thinking about setting up a political party. No. You may have it, and it may be destroyed as they have been doing already. What is needed is, first of all, to try to cure these troubles we have in terms of management of this country and whatsoever. That's what I think is necessary today.